title is Childhood Memories and Selected Poems by Seamus Heaney. But before starting by Dr. Rad, let me, as the adopted procedure, let me give some brief notes about him. Assistant Lecturer Dr. Rad Karim Abidon, Baccalaureate in English Department of English, College of Education, University of Babylon, 1998-1999. MA in English Literature, Modern Drama, College of Arts, University of Baghdad, 2001. PhD in English Literature, Modern Drama, College of Arts, University of Baghdad, 2011. Teaching in English universities, Wasat, Yarmouk University College, University of Babylon, since 2000-2001. Awarded first prize, National Award for Top Students in 1999. And awarded first prize, E-News India Electronic Journal for poem entitled Iraqi Sati, 2010. Now, Dr. Rad is going to present his seminar.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. As you can see, the title of the paper is Childhood Memories and Selected Poems by Seamus Heaney. Seamus Heaney is an Irish poet. He is considered by many critics. And I had to select the most representative poems because there are so many poems to be discussed. I had to limit myself to only a very limited number of them. So of course he grew up in Belfast, and that is in Northern Ireland, and of course, as everybody knows, Northern Ireland is which discuss his memories of death, his childhood memories of death, and the second part discusses his childhood memories concerning his father, and his father plays a very significant role in his life and in his
السلام عليكم. اسف هو ما ادري ثاني بس استمر اروح لا استمر قبل حالتك حتى دكتور اي والله رحم الله علوم الحياه
Now the first poem to be discussed is his poem Funeral Rites. It was published within a collection of poems entitled North in 1975. This poem focuses on his memories on the burial of one of his neighbors. And as the oldest child in the family, and after the death of his father, he had to participate. I mean, he must represent the family in the funerals, in the social events that take place within his neighborhoods. And he connects the modern funeral he participates in with the ancient funeral rites that used to take place in the 17th and 16th centuries, and even before that, when Ireland was being constantly invaded by Anglo-Saxons and the other tribes that come from northern Scandinavia. So, for example, in one of the sections of the poem, he says, "Out of side streets and byroads, pulling family cars, nose into lawn, the whole country tunes to a muffled drumming of 10,000 engines. Some ambulant women left behind move through empty kitchens, imagining our slow triumph toward the mounds. Moving from the procession of the cars that go to the cemetery to bury the dead, into the kitchen in which the women are left, mourning for the death of their men." And then he moves on to describe that the ancient burial of a certain heroic figure from a saga, the the Njáls saga, which is in Old Norse. And here comes the influence of the Anglo-Saxons and the Scandinavian peoples on his poem. His name is Gunnar Hamundarson. When he says, lay beautiful inside his burial mound, though dead by violence and unavenged. And later on he says, chanting verses about honor. Now, he is killed, he is dead by violence. The same thing happens in his present. The man whom he participates in his funeral died because of the violence that takes place in modern Ireland. Gunnar was killed because of violent actions, and both of those two men chant verses about honor, because one had died for the honor of his tribe, the other died for the honor of England. Now, the other poem which deals with death, well, let me just go through them as they appear here. In Man and Boy, from Seeing Things, which a collection of poems which he published in 1991, he goes back to the memories of his father, as the title clearly refers to, Man and Boy, the father and his son. Notice what he says: blessed be down to earth, blessed be highs, blessed be the detachment of dumb love in that broad-backed, low-set man who feared death all his life, but now and then could make a splash like a salmon, he said, was as big as a wee pork pig by the sound of it. He remembers his father. Notice how he describes him. Dumb love in that broad-backed, low-set man. He is a simple Irish peasant, and he described his love as dumb love. And he is low-set man because of the nature of his work, and he's always working in the fields, either planting or digging up potatoes. He is always, his back is always bent, and he describes him as who feared death all his life. He is a straight person who, just like all ordinary people, fears death, but this man fears it all of his life. And later on, when he describes his father, he says, old, heavy, and unpredictable joke, when he talks about the jokes which his father tells him. Now, but in this poem, there is something special about it. He remembers how once he carried his father, after his father became old and unable to move, he carried him. And at the end he says, I feel his legs and the quick heels far away, as strange as my own when he will piggyback me at a great height, light-headed and thin, boned like a witless elder, rescued from the fire. Now this line of verse, like a witless elder, rescued from the fire, it's written in plain words. There is nothing special about it. But if we remember Homer's Iliad, and when an elderly Aeneas rescued his father by carrying him on his back out of Troy and sailed into Greece, establishing later on Rome and establishing Rome and the Roman Empire. Now he gives his poem a mythological bent. He gives it a mythological force simply by making a reference with the simplest of words. And here lies his strength. I mean, here lies the power of his, or let me say, the greatness of his poetry. because with the simplest of words, with the shortest of lines, he can transfer his poems from talking about an ordinary subject into talking about a mythological subject. Now, in Seeing Things in 19, which is the title poem of the collection, Seeing Things, written in 1991, he goes back to talking about death, but now it is the death of his father. Now, take a look at this, for example. With what is invisible, water, weed, stirred sand, the grains hurrying off, the shadowy and shadow citrine itself. Here he is describing his journey towards the cathedral, and part of the journey, in part of the journey, he would go by boat. And he describes it, including the facade of the cathedral. And then he comes to his father and he says, that afternoon I saw him face to face. He came to me with his damp footprints out of the river, and there was nothing between us there that might not still be happily ever after. He remembers how his father once came out of the river and he looked at him and he says, that might not still be happily ever after. Happily ever after is it is like a catchy phrase that ends all of the fairy tales, and they lived happily ever after. But now it is given a bitter twist, because he will not live with his father happily ever after, because he is remembering this in his father's funeral. Notice how he uses, again, small dictionary. Now he borrows from fairy tales to describe something that is actually tragic. It is not happy at all. Now, to conclude, those childhood memories which he refers to and uses in his poems are not merely recollections. They are not only memories, but they are footsteps toward his poetic maturity. For example, when he remembers in his poem Digging, which is a very famous poem and it is often included in anthologies, when he looks at his pen and he said, it sat squat between my thumb and forefinger like a gun. He remembers how his father used to hold the spade and dig potatoes out of the ground, and he says, I will use the pen, just like a spade, digging memories and digging words out, writing poems. It is not only a matter of recollecting things that he lived, but in the words of Wordsworth, the child is father of the man. His childhood led him to what he is now. Those memories, had he not remembered those memories, he wouldn't have written all of these poems. So they are steps toward his poetic maturity. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Dr. Raad. And now it is time for discussions. Yes, please.
Well, I don't want to take a lot of time, but I have just 2 points to raise now.
Yes.
According to what I've just said, I have listened to poems which are only devoted to death themes.
Yes.
And I would suggest that the title would go better if you put it like child death memories instead of, because you have never come across other memories. You have only focused on death memories. So there is no use to me to generalize the idea. And death memories will work better. Just think of it. It is just a suggestion. And the other point is also just a suggestion. I'm inquired probably. D.H. Lawrence, in his 1920 collection, I think I got a collection called Poems 1920. If I am not quite sure, just check it for the title itself.
Yes.
He also had some memories of the past, especially about
His mother.
Yes. Do you find any space for comparing one with the other? Would that work? Just an inquiry. Would it work? To find how far Seamus, for example, differs from Lawrence's treatment of memories, though, I mean, the cause is different. I mean, Seamus is about dead memories, whereas Lawrence is just family
Well, he is.
members, especially with his mother.
Also, he writes about her death as well in one of his poems. He talks about her death.
If you find any room for
Comparison.
bringing them together, just think of that. Thank you very much. That's all I want.
Yes, please.
Actually, I give preponderance to Dr. Saleh since there is a trajectory, okay, from the past to the present. So the present here or the past here tokens everything, not only childhood. Seemingly, childhood strikes deep roots in his memory. So I think here, just like, he's talking not about childhood, his life as a whole.
Well,
His father,
yes, definitely.
that is why he reminiscent the past. Okay.
No, I mean, when you look at the poems, at least the poems which I have chosen, it is always Seamus the child, not the adolescent, not the adult. It is always the child. I mean, there is the figure of the father, and beside him, in one of his poems entitled Follower, he is always following his father's footsteps in the field. So it is always Seamus Heaney the child, who is carried on the back, who is not allowed to come near the horses while he is following or anything of the like. It is always Seamus the child. So it is really childhood memories. In another sonnet sequence, which is called Sequarings, he is talking about marbles, du'bul. He remembers how they used to play marbles in the streets and how they used to sequare, I mean, to just a headphone, to hit the marble. So it is always Seamus the child who is being remembered by Seamus the adult poet. Thank you very much. Yes.
There is another poem. I think he's dealing with his grandfather's son.
Yeah, and one of them he remembers. I think man and boy. He remembers
The
not
way
only.
he gives him
Yeah.
the water from the milk.
Uh,
He drinks it like.
in
He
Cherning,
takes
you
it
mean?
in the
Cherning Day, you mean?
I think yes.
Yeah, Cherning. I haven't dealt with Cherning Day. So,
Really?
well, I had to make a selection. Otherwise, I will be
No, I
dealing
mean a
with all.
different theme, but
Yeah, I will look at it, certainly.
I think we have.
Yeah, certainly. Cherning Day. Yes.
Well, it seems that this is the end of the story for this week.
Come here.
Happy ever after.
Thank you.
Yeah, well,
Thank you very